Okay, so this is our new introduction for one of our older episodes. We're recording this at the end of 2024, but this is going back to a very early record for us when we did Cameron Crowe's 2000 film Almost Famous. That was actually back in May of this year as part of our coming of age cycle. Looks like this was the second one in the series, and this was Andy's choice, if I remember correctly.
Yep, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Great conversation, like a lot of fun. My notes say we talked for about like an hour and 45 minutes. Pretty wide ranging discussion, not just on kind of like the film itself, but kind of sort of music on the 70s, and a bit sort of kind of like about like the different kind of generational perspective of these things. And we also had we also had one of our first celebrity cameos on the show, Mr. Warren. Himself actually showed up for like a few minutes at the top, and it was quite the experience we had meeting him.
That was that episode.
Yes, it was.
Nice.
Yeah, that was an unforgettable experience.
Guys, so coming about like 6 months out, Almost Famous, a movie that I remember kind of divided the show a little bit, like a film I certainly was like a little bit mixed on myself. Thinking back on the movie now, like a little bit of time has passed. Where are you at with it currently?
I think
you going.
I think I still like the movie. I think I'm glad that I suggested it for the pod. Because if I remember correctly, I know Johnny, you'd never seen it, and then Naveen, you hadn't seen it either, right?
Right, I had never seen it either. I was going to comment.
I believe Eric's is not here. Unfortunately, I think the movie was also brand new for him as well.
Yeah, I think I was the only one on the pod that had seen it, so I was excited to have the opportunity to share it with you guys. I completely understand the mixed response to it. Having watched it over, obviously, again for that pod, it was not 100% what I remembered it being. I still enjoyed it. But I don't think that I don't think I would have loved it if that had been my first watch. I would have liked it. I don't think I would have loved it the way that I kind of do.
Andy, do you remember the point where you first came to this movie?
Oh boy. I think
this was a 2000 release, so about kind of mid-college for us. Was it something you caught in theaters or like later on down the line?
I'm pretty sure I went and saw it in theaters, probably with my wife.
Nice.
And
thank you.
Yeah, I think we both loved it. We probably went to, that, what was the Willimantic Theater?
Oh no.
Near Yukon. Place was a fucking dump.
Willimantic, the location of my brother's old alma mater, the heroin capital of New England, I believe I heard it described as once.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. Nice. I don't remember running into any H addicts at that point, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. Entirely possible.
Right. And maybe like a little bit thematic for like the movie as well. It depends.
Could have been. Yeah, could have been. I think we went and saw the first. When did the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man come out?
Oh, 99 to 2000. This would have been like.
So I think we went and saw that at the same theater. I remember going to see that as well. So anyway, for whatever that's worth. What about you, Naveen?
Yeah, as we already mentioned, this was my first watching of it. It's been always in my list. But I remember enjoying it. It was just fun, definitely with all the music there. And, there was there was definitely a storyline there, but also just some of the antics were fun to watch and things. Probably a little bit for me, it's like a behind the scenes look at stuff that happens with bands as opposed to just the concert stuff. And for me, it was like, all right, the life I always dreamed of living, being a musician. It's like,
but then you see like a lot of the childishness and like the cynicism and like the nonsense of just like the T-shirt is everything, like that kind of shit.
Right. And then
that's probably super accurate. Like, I'm sure that shit happened 100%. All the time to bands. You got these 20-somethings, a group of 20-something, guys. Typically, it was always guys back then. You had very few female bands that kind of made it big and did all that kind of traveling and everything. touring, I mean. But like those stupid petty arguments probably happened on like the daily.
Right.
You know?
Particularly for very kind of talented, artistic and probably more than like a little bit just sort of egotistical types that sort of that are attracted to that kind of life, that kind of world to begin with. Plus, I mean, like in your mid-20s, like as a guy, your brain has not even finished growing together. Just like some of the stupid shit again, that a lot of that, which I think kind of makes like the movie sort of dramatically compelling, seeing kind of both sides of those things. But that had to be just like a day-to-day experience for like a lot of those groups, and just like living in that world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you think of all the bands that have, you know, got massive and then couldn't stand each other and split up, and you know, many of them, I would say the majority of them, don't get back together. You know, you got, I mean, Zeppelin, and you got, I mean, the Beatles is a different story, but even the Beatles were getting sick of each other toward the end, and you know,
and not a thing specific to that generation either. I mean, like for people our age, Oasis has to be like the most famous version of that, right?
Those two,
yeah,
same thing. Same thing. They're back together now. They've reconciled at least enough to tour together. But
right.
Pretty standard.
Who was that band you said, Andy? It kind of cut out for me.
Black Crowes.
Black Crowes.
Yeah. Chris and Rich Robinson basically like hated each other for the longest time. Now they're back together and are touring, but they couldn't stand each other for a long time.
Yeah.
For me, this movie was it's kind of funny thinking back on like I've not enjoyed I've enjoyed the vast majority of like the films we've actually watched for the pod. For like the small handful of ones I've not particularly liked for one reason or another, Almost Famous is the one that I can say like I didn't particularly like this movie, but at the same time I can recognize how well made it actually is, and completely understand the just like the wrap of sort of kind of just critical enthusiasm and like you know, like the number of award nominations it actually got, and kind of like the staying power like this movie has had as just kind of like a cult film that's only kind of like its reputation and how much people really love it has just kind of like built up over the years. I believe I kind of mentioned on the pod itself, but in kind of doing like a little bit of research on this movie, I just found out in 2024 they actually did in Hollywood they did a sort of big screen projection of this movie at like the Rose Bowl. It's the movie, and this is kind of where I landed at the time, and I think I'm kind of in the same place kind of 6 months later. I think there's an amazing Philip Seymour Hoffman performance in like the middle of it. I think for the small amount of time that she's in, I think like the Zooey Deschanel performance is actually really pretty good, because she's the only person who sort of sanely, reasonably reacts to how completely insane Frances McDormand's character actually is. It's like the thing that kind of drove me nuts about the movie like a little bit is it felt just a bit insincere and like a bit kind of pandering to me. Like the thing that was kind of making me crazy was like I wanted to see two other versions of this movie. I wanted to see Jay Baruchel and what was happening when he was falling around like Led Zeppelin the entire time. That would have been more compelling to me. But the thing that I really was kind of more interested in kind of seeing is like, you know, this stuff was this film was actually inspired by Cameron Crowe's actual time as a 15-16-year-old falling around and writing about the Allman Brothers back in the day. And it just that kind of just kind of hung over like the movie for me the entire time of like, I'm so much more curious about like what the real life version of this looked like, as opposed to kind of the Cameron Crowe style kind of, you know, just a glossy Neverland, you know, certainly with like, you know, just kind of like the Kate Hudson sort of manic kind of dream girl, pixie dream girl sort of character. It just the whole time I'm like, this can't have been the real version of this. I think would have been just for me at least like a far more kind of compelling watch. But nonetheless, I think it was you know, I just remember like this being like really kind of, it was an interesting.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say the fact that this never got turned into not this, but that actual story that happened to him never got turned into like a documentary, or was it? Did he write a book about it? I don't know. I don't know that he ever did.
I don't believe so. I found the original profile that he wrote of the Allman Brothers from when he was about 16 years old. I think it's like the 71 or 72 tour. I don't think that ever really got like adapted into anything like separately from this at all. This is kind of considered yeah.
That would be such a fascinating story to hear firsthand, his actual, this is what happened, we went to this city and this is what I would love to read that book. That would be really fascinating.
100%. Anyway, so that is our little kind of updated intro. I think it sounds like everybody is largely in the same place. Interesting movie, really good conversation. So we hope that everybody enjoys.
Yeah, definitely check it out and check out the movie too.
It's all happening.
Guys, so I just got a text from Eric. He said he's just going to be a few minutes late to the pod, but I didn't mention this at the party earlier, but got a little bit of a surprise for you guys. This is real exciting. This is kind of a big deal. After just 6 episodes, we finally have I guess you could say celebrity guest who's interested in coming into the pod. Gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast from Empire Records, Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty.
Hey!
Nice.
Warren Beatty, everybody.
Yo, fellas. How's it going? Johnny, Andy, Naveen. You guys want some CDs? Real cheap. What do you got? Cheap. I got some
got Whitney Houston?
Some Wilco. You down with Wilco? You want some Guster?
Sure.
All right.
Got some Fat Joe for you.
Nice.
Warren, we're so pleased to have you on the podcast.
Johnny, by the way.
Yeah.
How's your mother?
She's good.
Tell her hi for me. Tell her hi for
me.
Thank you.
I'll do the text as soon as we're finished like potting. Warren, what have you been up to like these last few years? Are you still working at the record shop?
Johnny, it was tragic. I got accused of shoplifting again. Me, Warren.
Again?
Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm selling CDs out of a cardboard box that I'm living out of. I've got rap, metal, some Whitney Houston, for my ex-girlfriend. But real tough life, Johnny. Real tough.
Oh, that's horrible, man. Well, let's kind of just focus on sort of maybe what we could call the good old days. One of my, just kind of thinking about your presence in the movie, one of my favorite scenes in Empire Records, which is just you and the guys all kind of dancing to AC/DC together. Are there any kind of kind of current musicians that you're excited about these days?
Oh, Johnny, I'm all about the classic stuff, buddy. I love
classic stuff.
The Blinks 182. Love me some Snoopy the Dog. I've got this album. It's mind blowing. It's called Bodyguard. I don't know. You probably never heard of it. Heavy stuff. Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
How's your dog?
My dog's great. She's right here next to me.
Tell her hi for me.
All right. So just
says hi.
Warren, something I'm kind of curious about. So the Empire Records, not exactly one of the most successful movies we covered, but really like a jumping off point for a few different 90s starlets. Certainly Liv Tyler, Rob McTunney, Andy's old kind of high school crush, Renee Zellweger. Could you tell us a little bit about kind of working with those guys?
I don't know. Pardon my French dressing, Johnny, but what is a Renee Zellweger? Is that some type of potato or something? Johnny.
I'm going to defer that question to Mr. King, if that's okay.
Johnny, I know what Gina. I know what Gina, Johnny. I know what Corey. Most of them quit after we saved Empire anyways. Corey went to Harvard. She's smart. Mark, not so much. AJ, I think he dropped out of art school. He he's now in Chelsea.
What's going in Chelsea?
Yeah, we had a funeral for Deb. If you didn't know, she's dead. Yeah, after we shaved her head. Gina ended up marrying Rex Manning.
Oh,
you
wow.
believe that?
Okay.
Something about a taste for the blue cheese, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I do know what you mean, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Warren, let me kind of toss this question out here. I lived in Massachusetts for about 13 years. Your accent is very, very kind of familiar. That now that you've kind of been talking, I'm assuming this is kind of your voice. Do you happen to be from the Boston area at all?
Johnny, you got me, Johnny.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know how you did it, buddy, but my name's actually not Warren. Yeah, I know. Surprise, surprise. It's not Warren. It's actually Warren Wahlberg. Warren Wahlberg.
Gentlemen, this is massive. We are breaking the news of a lost Wahlberg relative on this podcast.
Buddy.
It's truly incredible.
Wow.
Look, my brother Paulie, right?
Right.
He told me he found me in the street. He's like, "Yo, you got to come back to Massachusetts. They're opening up a new branch of Wahlburgers in Chelsea." Paulie said, they need somebody to shove it up its ass, so to speak.
Is that how they say it in Boston?
Rather, I'm assuming you're using the line cook, but just so. Welcome. This is a movie podcast. So I'm sure you're a very busy man with your new Wahlburger job and everything else. One last
question, Johnny. My time is precious.
For Mark Wahlberg, do you have any a guy with such a film career? Do you have any favorite films of his?
Marky, my brother Marky. Oh, man, Southie. That's my hands down. Southie. Look, it's got all my brothers starring in it.
Oh yeah.
It's got my brother Paulie.
Yeah.
It's got Tito, Pipsqueak, Johnny Jr., Johnny Sr., Burger. That's silent. The E silent. My brother Wally, Big Stick, other Donnie, and Marky, and the rest of the Funky Bunch. Oh. Another movie I love. My brother Marky. He's a fucking saint. It's the movie Fear, right? Have you ever heard of Fear, Johnny? Have you guys heard of Fear?
Yeah.
My brother Johnny, right?
It's a favorite of like another host that's not here right now. But
my brother Johnny, my brother Marky, right? He helps this nice woman named Reese's get over her fear of roller coasters. Johnny, do yourself a favor. He's a saint. He's a fucking saint. Mama's favorite. Oh, David, buddy, how's your brother, by the way?
Doing all right.
Tell him hi for me.
I will do. Didn't know you knew him.
Oh yeah.
Warren, thank you kindly for your time. This is we're
You don't want some CDs, buddy? Some CDs? No.
Maybe like a little bit. Just get up like the group chat after work. Warren, thank you kindly so much for your time. This really kind of.
All right, boys. Next time you're in Chelsea, I'm telling you, stop by Wahlburgers. I'll take care of you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
We'll be there.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Nice. Ladies.
I didn't know he had another brother, other Donnie. That's interesting.
Yes.
It's you lived in Mass. There's like the way these Irish Catholic families can just sort of.
They're like rabbits.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
That's facts.
So just out of curiosity, how much of that did Hillary actually was she actually?
She only caught just a very small portion of it. That's funny.
Yeah. I'll text Eric to see if he's ready to join the pod.
Sure. Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. Where are you at? We just had a great discussion about Fear.
Yeah.
One of us, just really a shame Eric couldn't have been there for that. Like Fear is a film he's talked about to me obsessively for like 26 years right now. It's a legit.
I was.
Hey,
I was too embarrassed.
Hey.
I was too embarrassed to admit that I've never seen Fear.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has other than Eric, but just something truly crazy just happened on the pod. We do not have time to get into it right now, but I'll just Naveen can forward you recording. It was.
What are you talking about? What happened?
You missed something amazing.
If we don't kind of go right like Almost Famous, we're not going to be able to just we're not going to be able to kind of.
I'm stuck having to talk about Almost Famous now.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Eric.
I
don't know. Say hi to your mother for me.
My mom. Yeah. Hey, Mom.
Yeah.
Mom. She gave me the middle finger.
If Dawn actually comes downstairs, I may actually pass out.
John, my mom lives in Chelsea. You know that.
Somebody else lives in Chelsea.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, we just found that out. But another day.
Amazing.
Let's move on before everything is completely derailed. Okay, so today we are discussing Almost Famous, a 2000 American comedy drama film written and directed by Cameron Crowe. I have here for synopsis in brief, a San Diego airline stewardess returns home to find her estranged mother in the midst of a psychotic break. Rock stars have kidnapped my son! This film was not commercially successful. It made only during its theatrical run about $48 million against a $60 million budget. However, this movie was a critical darling. 4 stars from Roger Ebert, like the first of such we've covered on the pod. I'll read just like a tiny excerpt of his review, but it's the story of a 15-year-old kid, smart, terrifyingly earnest, who through luck and pluck gets assigned by Rolling Stone magazine to do a profile of a rising rock band. Almost Famous is about the world of rock, but it's not a rock film. It's a coming-of-age film about an idealistic kid who sees the real world, witnesses its cruelties and heartbreaks, and yet finds much room for hope. It had 4 Academy Award nominations for Best Editing, Best Supporting Actress for both Frances McDormand and Kate Hudson, and ultimately was the winner that year for Best Original Screenplay. In the intervening time, it's risen sort of considerably in kind of cultural estimation. It's hugely popular now, definitely in kind of the category of the cult films that we'll talk about. I heard on the movie podcast I listened to that they just ran the film at a practically sold-out show at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right, so Andy, this was your pick. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this before we kind of do general impressions?
Sure. So I guess the thing that's interesting, or that was interesting to me, is I actually hadn't seen it in, I would say, several years. And I remember loving it. I still love it. I feel differently about it now, having watched it, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, than I, thought I was going to feel. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we go through it. But I found myself, looking through the eyes of a 43-year-old as opposed to probably a 35, 34-year-old the last time I saw it.
Okay, so you came to this one and kind of not when it first kind of came out to theaters, or not kind of during sort of college or anything. This was still kind of like a relatively middle.
Well, the last time you saw it.
No. So I did 30, see it. Yeah. I saw it when it first came out.
Oh, okay.
I did see it when it first came out. And in fact, I actually think I saw it in the theater, if memory serves. And I've watched it a number of times over the years, but it's been about, I would say, close to 8 to 10 years since I last watched it. And I guess I just found myself looking at the characters very differently now than now that I have a teenage son, now that I have a daughter, now that I have a little bit of, age behind me and maybe wisdom, ? I don't know.
Certainly coming to it first time from the perspective of a parent with teen or near teen children, that has to be a very different lens to watch it.
Definitely. It made me change my opinion on a number of the characters. Not necessarily for the good or for the bad. It just sort of changed the way that I viewed them, which is actually kind of cool. I think it's fun to be able to watch a movie like that, or to absorb a piece of pop culture like that it's different now than it was then. You know, it's
but it's still something that at the same time that you appreciate, that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess that's my take. I mean, I think the reason that I was so in love with it back in the day, and I still love it to this day, is, and Johnny, this is something you and I talked about a little bit in person the last time we saw each other. I'm a huge fan of that era of music.
Sure.
You know, if you go into this knowing that it's going to be sort of a romantic comedy drama coming of age thing, and you're not expecting, you know, the debauchery of the 70s rock scene, then you'll be pleasantly surprised. If you're coming into it in a different way, and Johnny, I know you'll talk about this a bit later, then maybe you'll have a different perspective on it. So that's it.
Naveen, how about you? Sort of just kind of top level impressions of the film.
Yeah, so this was the first time I saw it, you know, a week or so ago. Kind of kicked myself in the butt for not having seen it earlier because I enjoyed it. It was just a great movie, great storytelling. You know, it wasn't your typical rom-com type deal or drama or, you know, your new action movies. You know, it was just a well-written story, kept you engaged, and you wanted to keep watching it. It wasn't boring, and I enjoyed it, and probably gonna watch it again, hopefully soon. But we'll see with all the other things we come up with to watch. Just to get a something I did miss.
That's really great. Like indication that you're immediately like, I got to take a second pass at that. Almost.
Right. You know, probably missed some stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The first time through.
Eric, going to you.
Yeah. Again, it was the first time for me watching it too. I had no idea what I was walking into with this film. I never saw the film Singles either. Say Anything. I don't have much experience with Cameron Crowe. So,
which went high, Jerry Maguire. He just
okay, sure, yeah. So it's kind of like a mixed bag of movies, maybe. I didn't love it. I felt like, again, like Andy mentioned, maybe to me, I thought it was going to be about the music, and then it kind of turned into like a romantic comedy for me. I felt like as the movie progressed, I'm like, where is this going? Is it trying to be serious? Is it trying to be funny? I think the thing that's interesting for me, too, is if I had watched this when I was like 20 or something, I would have had a completely different impression of this movie, and I probably would have loved it. Knowing a lot of these actors now and who they are now versus when they're, you know, their careers are just starting, I feel completely different about it. A good example is Zooey Deschanel. As soon as I saw her and she does her like regular shtick or whatever, I was just like, is she really that angry at her mom? Like, is she really just going to take off? And then she just, you know, she's like, oh, I'm going to be a airline attendant or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's so whimsical. Oh, I love it.
She's leaving the house in like those big giant curlers.
I'm going, Johnny. I'm going to go. Sorry, brother. Good luck. Here's my albums. I'm like, oh, you Zoe, you've got the best parts. So I mean, I think another thing, and you might bring this up too, Johnny, is I felt like there was a better movie that could have come out of this. I felt like it was a watered down version, maybe, of what actually happened to Cameron Crowe, because again, I didn't learn about what actually happened until I looked into it. I didn't realize that this was based off actual people, like actual rock stars. I thought it was all fictional. I mean, it kind of is fictional, but I thought majority of it was fictional. I didn't realize Cameron Crowe actually was like William, and he actually was, you know, writing articles for Lester Bangs and stuff like that. So finding that out kind of changes the whole thing. But I'm like, now it makes me think like, what really happened? And then the question is do I want more of a serious with slight comedy movie versus, you know, something with kind of a romantic angle, which I really didn't need. But, I mean, maybe that's just me.
Right. Well, I'll kind of speak to my piece of it. For me, at least, and like the way I watch films, like I think kind of, and Andy, I'll sort of be just kind of almost kind of verbatim, kind of repeating what I sort of told to you, like Justin's over the weekend. I think kind of like a good acid test for film, at least for me personally, is kind of like watching a thing and going, what is this at least as interesting as the events that inspired it? I'll give you sort of example. A really great kind of book and documentary combo I read like a few years ago was a sort of like a nonfiction book by John Krakauer called Into Thin Air, about a expedition that he kind of did up Mount Everest. It was initially just kind of like an article in an outdoor magazine, but during the expedition, kind of like this freak snowstorm hit Everest, and all the climbers kind of stranded them on the mountain for a few days. 8 people totally died before they were able to kind of make it off the mountain. Like many more were kind of sort of very seriously kind of injured or maimed. And as kind of what was kind of happening at the mountain at the same time, there was a IMAX documentary crew kind of climbing the mountain. So after reading the book, there's about like a 45-minute like documentary that you can kind of see of IMAX footage of the camps, of the storm, and just kind of like kind of interviews of everybody that kind of survived, sort of just survived that ordeal afterwards. So there's all this footage of things like there's this the thing that sticks with me so specifically about that book is like there's an interview with the Texas physician who's missing, who kind of survived the expedition, survived the storm. He's missing all of his right arm and most of his right arm and the entirety of his nose. And he's just kind of sitting there in an interview going, like, man, that stuff was crazy. Can't tell you. So it just kind of real life stories. It's incredible that they had, just not only just like the superb writer, but also sort of just like this kind of documentary crew at the same time. That got remade as a movie in 2015 that kind of changed a lot of details, smoothed a lot of kind of like the ugly sort of like parts and all kind of like all sort of just the back and forth and like the politics and then some like sketchy stuff, the tourist group from doing anything. I remember just kind of reading about the movie and thinking I would much rather they just kind of expand and kind of told like the story. I bounced off of Almost Famous for a very similar kind of way in that just it's sweet-natured, it's sentimental, it's nostalgic, it's certainly up. Andy, you said this is one of your favorite decades of music. This is absolutely my personal favorite decade.
Yeah, I'm there with you too.
And it very well made film, and it's something that I absolutely understand people have such kind of like can have really deep-rooted affection for. When I was in Connecticut last week, I was talking to my parents. My mother's best friend has seen this movie just north of 20 times. Actually,
wow!
But yeah, this one for me just kind of personally bounced. It's the same kind of thing, especially kind of knowing something about these bands, and then reading a bit about kind of Cameron Crowe's own life. I just kind of kept coming back again to like I would rather see the far crazier stuff that actually happened rather than the kind of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's a totally fair critique. I think that's a totally fair critique.
I like how you had that point of comparison there, Johnny, because what I did is I went in a different direction. I watched The Disaster Artist. Because I love the book by, was it Tom Bissell?
Tom Bissell, yes.
Yeah, Tom Bissell. And I thought that captured so much of the magic. Like, that's the fly on the wall take on what probably happened. Greg Sestero meeting like Tommy and all that kind of stuff and recreating that story. And when I watched the movie, I was just like, this is like, I could have watched The Room.
Just a little context for Andy and Naveen here. The Disaster Artist movie is a film kind of made by, it was a Seth Rogen and like the other kind of actors.
You guys know about it? Yeah.
James Franco, James Franco and his brother David. This movie was based on a book written by Tom Bissell about the making of the 2003 cult movie The Room, which Naveen, I believe you had like on your actual like original list of The Room is an impossible thing to kind of describe like in the time frame that we actually had.
I would have done better just like listening to people talk about like what The Room meant to them or something, or their impressions of watching The Room. But it's like I watched the third shitty version of what I could have been watching to give me like that Room experience. I was like, just watch The Room, or read the book about the making of The Room. Don't watch like the movie about the making of the actual Room when it's
right. The Disaster Artist, to my memory, kind of it felt like a sort of fan fiction. Is that I kind of got that.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we move on to some of these questions that Andy kind of wrote for us, and Andy, we'll start with you here. First category: I hate the fucking Eagles, man. Would this film be as effective without its impactful soundtrack? Andy, what do you think?
So I'm just going to list off the names of the ones that jumped out at me as I was watching the movie, and I, followed up and I checked it out. So Simon and Garfunkel, The Who, Todd Rundgren, Yes, The Beach Boys, Rod Stewart, Allman Brothers Band, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Stick with me, guys. This keeps going.
Right.
Zeppelin, Elton John, Nancy Wilson, David Bowie, Cat Stevens, The Stooges, Black Sabbath, Jethro Tull, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young and Crazy Horse, The Guess Who, Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple, Steely Dan, MC5, Jimi Hendrix Experience, Stevie Wonder, Stillwater, and Alvin and the Chipmunks.
I was going to Guess Who, but you kept going.
It better be Christmas time.
Boom. Yeah.
So I mean, so much of this movie was made by the soundtrack. The soundtrack is practically another character in the movie. I would argue that without this soundtrack, or if they were just using, either music that they made up, for the soundtrack, or other songs or artists that weren't maybe as well known, or whatever, this movie isn't, at least for me, isn't half as enjoyable. The fact that it's like, I look at it in a lot of ways similar to Forrest Gump. Mm-hmm. Forrest Gump's a great movie. I mean, there's a good story there. There's a lot going on. It's not my favorite movie of all time, but it's pretty good. But then when you Creedence Clearwater, and you've got all amazing bands that are playing in the background of all these things that are happening to Forrest Gump.
Point. Yeah.
It just makes the movie. So no,
it immediately sets the scene. It immediately sort of just fills in. It paints in the corners of just where's the world, what is the vibe, what it's like a good music choice can be such a just not just kind of backing, but sort of reach shorthand of what's happening.
And the most memorable. Sorry, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I was going to say, even for the actors that were in this film as well, a lot of them didn't have like the passion for that type of music as well. And so being those characters and being exposed to that kind of world kind of brought them into it. And so I think that's what you kind of get from the characters as well is I felt like all the people in this movie, I'm like, again, like Clearwater, I'm like, all those people up there, those scenes where they show them on stage performing in the Jason Lee, oh my God, I was just like, I mean, I've never seen My Name is Earl, but I was just like,
I thought he did a pretty good. Like, I was skeptical, and like they made Jason Lee the lead singer. I thought he did a pretty. I mean, I think his vibes were kind of like extremely like good for like a kind of like a bit of a snowflakey kind of way. Like is like as he's lip syncing, I thought was kind of pretty good.
Yeah, Billy Crudup's not a household name, but I mean, he did an amazing job.
Yep.
I was like,
I definitely have some Crudup stuff for later.
Yeah. And I guess the thing I would say just to finish it up real quick, for me anyway, the most memorable scene in the whole movie is they're on the bus and they're singing Tiny Dancer.
That's
So, and not only is it a great
I was
scene,
there with them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like you just find yourself, you feel, you get like, I don't know, I get chills every time I see that scene. Makes me wish I was on that bus with those guys in that moment. That scene works because of the music that's being played along with it. And I think that's kind of like the encapsulation of sort of the whole movie for me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Cameron Crowe helming this too, the best part about it is he knows these bands. Like he still keeps in contact with some of these people. I guess to get permission to use Led Zeppelin's music, they don't usually let people use it for like, movie soundtracks or movies in general. And because he still keeps in touch with them, he got permission to do like I think 4 songs.
Yeah.
He really wanted to do "Stairway to Heaven." I don't know if you guys heard this.
Mhm.
Really?
No.
Awesome.
Oh,
fact.
yeah, I know the story.
Do you know this one? He wanted to play "Stairway to Heaven" in its entirety in the film, and yeah, they shut it down. So what it is I mean, I could be wrong, but what I heard is if you have the Blu-ray, they actually have you can watch a version of the movie where they cue you when to turn the song on, so you can play it
Really?
and listen to it while it plays out.
It's like a Dark Side of the Moon
That's
Wizard of Oz
cool.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, what a unique thing. But I mean, if Cameron Crowe hadn't been there, I mean, would he have been able to pull together such an amazing soundtrack with all these, classic bands? It's just
No way.
yeah.
No way.
It's when Zeppelin told Crowe that he couldn't use the song, did he go, "No, Stairway, denied"?
Oh God! Boo!
Okay.
Boo.
Yeah, you know what? You all laughed first. That's all I was looking for. Devine, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah. It's a good movie. It is a great soundtrack, but I was just taken aback a little bit by it, 'cause just from what the trailers or what I knew about it. I thought it was just more 70s rock era. But this fanned more than that. I guess I don't quite consider Elton John like rock, but I guess he was back then. But some of his songs are more poppy to me than rock. And then just right off the bat, the opening song is the Chipmunk song. Right in the beginning, it's just like I was not expecting that, and it was pretty nice. But yes, it does add to the music. Certainly does add to it, and pulls it together, because that's. I mean, the whole idea is the kid on coming of age journey, but he's following this band, and so it's about music. So your music better, again, like I agree with Andy being another character with it. Because if the music doesn't quite match, it doesn't quite tell the story. So in a sense, not necessarily a stereotypical musical, but it is a musical. Like, here's the song of the time and what's going on.
Let me ask you this. After watching the movie, did you go and start listening to some of those bands again? I mean, I don't know if you were a fan of that type of music or still are, but I mean, after I watched the film, I'm like, what hit for me was Tangerine by Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
That was a nice little surprise, and I was just like, it's such a fucking good song. I gotta go back and listen to some more Sarah Zeppelin. It's
for me, I didn't do that, but
no.
I do have a kind of it's my soundtrack station on Amazon Music, so it kind of goes between like songs that I have listened to, so it does go back in that era, and then it'll jump back to the 90s, and so
okay, cool.
So not like specifically going down that rabbit hole of just like, all right, wow.
You didn't go down to Chipmunks rabbit hole?
No, not yet. No.
I was like 4 a.m. listening to Chipmunks' Christmas album over and over again.
Right. Well, that's sad, but okay.
I wish
he just wants his 2 front teeth, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Naveen, mark this part, and you just cut it out later if like the story's like a little bit too creepy. But Eric, 1000% on Tangerine. It's kind of like a more obscure Zeppelin song, but I'm like it's really really good. It's just one I haven't sort of just kind of played back. Like,
you don't always go back to it,
yeah.
And then something like this surprises you, and you're like,
right. Oh shit! There's another great Zeppelin song I should really kind of listen to more often. So. I was coming back from like a midday hike, sort of last week, and sort of kind of driving back from Vegas, and I decided, it was just at stoplight. I decided, just to put Tangerine on, and I'm sort of kind of just nodding my head and kind of like I'm kind of jamming to it. I stopped at a crosswalk, and it's where I was driving back was near kind of Durango High School in Las Vegas, and the school had just let out at the time. And right kind of in the middle of like the song, like this older teenager starts kind of crossing like the crosswalk, and she was dressed exactly like a band groupie from like Almost Famous. Just fucking
nice.
Like jewelry and earrings, a black halter top and everything else. And I started kind of going across the crosswalk, and I'm just like, holy shit, it's Tangerine. Manifested. I don't know.
Did you have to look at your phone to see what year it was and everything?
You checked her age, right?
So I checked whether I had a cell phone, and then it was definitely I convinced myself that it wasn't 1970. And also looked to my right to see if Hunter S. Thompson was there. just vanity checks more and more increasing as he got older. Papa, what do you think about? Any other thoughts about the soundtrack for you?
No, but again, they were just integrated into the movie so well. I mean, again, like Andy said, like if they didn't have the soundtrack, or Cameron Crowe didn't have the privilege of using this music, I don't think I would have watched this movie. I mean, and if you made me watch it, I'd be like, what's the point? Like, what am I doing here? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think there's anything else you could have, play for this that would make it, more perfect.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just kind of say, it's same sort of thing, kind of great soundtrack. I know next to nothing about Elton John, but like a weird bit of trivia, I just kind of had off the dome before watching this, was that Tiny Dancer. I decided randomly a few years ago, I'm like, these, I'm just not the biggest fan, but listen to the song random. Like, these are amazing lyrics. Mm-hmm. I was kind of curious, what was kind of going through Bernie Taupin's head when he kind of wrote the song originally.
Yeah.
The story about writing the song, I'm very loosely paraphrasing this, was him talking about moving from the UK to Los Angeles for like the first time, kind of going out to shows on Sunset Strip, and he talks about in his I guess autobiography, seeing the Southern California women in Los Angeles walking down the LA Strip after kind of having grown up in the rainy, gray UK this entire life, calling it, to that point in his life, calling those women like the single most beautiful thing that he'd ever seen. Mm-hmm. And then he started kind of getting involved in like the music scene, and Tiny Dancer was kind of inspired by these Penny Lane type women that he would see hanging out with, like a lot of the bands, girls that weren't necessarily there as kind of groupies necessarily, but they're as kind of like as muses, or kind of like as kind of den mothers, or kind of just kind of more sources of kind of like a emotional or spiritual comfort for these guys kind of struggling with their art. And so I thought that was kind of just interesting, knowing that, and then kind of watching that scene in Almost Famous. That song literally is about Penny Lane. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will say, guys, I'm not the hugest Elton John fan, but I do really like Elton John's music. And if you guys have never really delved into his catalog, the album that Tiny Dancer is on is called Madman Across the Water, I believe. No, that's a different one. I think it's called the album's called Madman Across the Water. I think Tiny Dancer is on that, but it may or may not be. But regardless, the Madman Across the Water album is brilliant from start to finish. It is a masterpiece of the genre. So if you are feeling like you need that nostalgia 70s kick, and you can stomach some Elton John, that's where you go. That album is choice.
That's a good one. Right.
Nice.
Yep.
As part of the research for this, I randomly decided to look up how many albums and original songs Elton John has had. So these statistics are amazing. 31 studio albums, 75 albums total, 378 original songs, the majority of which he wrote with Benny Taupin.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yeah.
He's a busy boy.
Yeah.
We are
Eric, your camera's off.
What's that?
All right.
I can see him fine.
Yeah.
It's off on my side.
Yeah, it says sometimes like the client side will sort of cut the video feed.
Andy, you bastard.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this is how you're going to be rolling tonight.
Right.
That's
Take your plug back.
But yeah, sorry, is there a pug in front of your camera?
No, because I see the other guys just fine. It's just
really?
me.
Oh, weird. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Well, I don't see you. Right. I could see you fine. I see everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my back?
There is. Yeah.
No,
you're front.
Hey, no, not for me. I can't see you.
If you click on somebody's screen, if you go with the three little dots on the right, you can choose "Don't Watch." and you can actually turn them off, I believe. I just turned you off.
I don't blame you.
Andy, it might be something like the video feed's doing adaptively just on your end.
Did
So
you
just
try it?
Yeah.
Move your mouse
Yeah, I
to
did
the
try
middle,
it. It didn't
and then
work.
you have the three little dots with more options.
Okay.
No, it didn't work. I did it.
Oh.
That's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
fine.
I got
Wow,
you on my
you
end, so I'm the one recording.
Yeah.
Okay,
Same here.
all right.
We're the two of you are the closest, and there's a feed issue.
As long as the recording doesn't kick out one or both of us.
Yeah,
Software is terrible and never works. So
that's right.
are we okay? We're recording.
Yes.
Okay, leave all of that in. Just
Okay.
better yet, clip it out, put it on Patreon behind.
Oh
the
shit! I gotta
paywall.
put my shirt back on. Hold on, guys.
All right, and we're back, folks. Okay, I wanted to take like a little breather and come back because Andy, I think this is an excellent question. I wanted to just make sure we're going to spend a good amount of time on this one. But Andy's question: who wears the black hat? Is there an almost famous and identifiable antagonist? Who or what is it? Andy, do you want to answer this first?
Sure. I don't think there's a clear answer to the question. I just think it's an interesting topic to talk about. When I first watch it, and what I have written down here is that I think Russell Hammond might actually be the antagonist. The Billy Crudup character. He prevents William from getting his interview pretty much the entire movie, almost destroys his career by denying the story entirely. He okays the trade, or at least he's in the room for the trade of Penny Lane for, what was it, $50 and a case of beer or something like that.
I think it was all the Band-Aids that they exchanged there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was, he stood by and let that happen. Plus you could call into question his fidelity to his girlfriend or fiance or whatever she was. But I feel like that was kind of par for the course back then.
She was described, I believe, as ex-wife, current girlfriend. So
something like that. So that was my initial thought, and I still think that he might be my answer. But I also think, in some ways, Penny is kind of a little bit of an antagonist in all of it too. Not quite as knowingly or maybe even maliciously as I think maybe Russell Hammond might have been, but she's got this 14 or however old William was in the movie. I forget, was he 15, 14?
He was
13.
I think 15 at the time that he was on tour, and Penny was 16, if I remember right.
So he's got this 15-year-old. She's got this 15-year-old kid that's so obviously in love with her, and anybody can see it. It's so obvious. And she's, catting around with Russell Hammond, who is supposedly William's friend to a point. And she is, basically just playing with this kid's emotions. She's also, I don't know. It's an incomplete thought, but it just occurred to me as I was answering the question, maybe she has some blame in it as well. So yeah, I guess that's my thought.
Andy, I think kind of both those points are sort of extremely well put. Two small addendums, though. One, and you can kind of count this as you can count this if you want to or not, but actually, it's interesting. In the extended cut of the film, there is a scene where Jimmy Fallon explicitly tells Russell to lie to Rolling Stone about verifying all that information. And
really?
There's also I think there was a longer scene between Russell and Afruza Bulk's character, I think Alexia, of them talking and her being like, everybody knows what you did, everybody knows you liked the magazine, you really fucked up, and Russell kind of come with that realization.
Interesting.
I was going to say,
okay.
too, you mentioned that to me, and then I was thinking Jimmy Fallon already. Because I was like, I just don't like Jimmy Fallon in the movie in general, but the fact that he's pulling them away from their tour bus, their faithful tour bus, which is all rock and roll. He's the one that's kind of taking them away from where they want to be or where they should be. And I question, again, if they hadn't been on the plane, would they have had that whole confession time where everybody just kind of
great
spills the
scene.
beans. Even like Russell's wife is like confessing, like she's sleeping with like Jason Lee's character and stuff. And I'm like, if that had never happened, if they had stayed on the bus, would they just kind of kept staying where they are at that point in time? You know, the band itself, the band not evolving, just kind of moving along in that, you know, one little space.
Which depending the angle you have, could or could not have been sort of like a more or less kind of like more positive thing for them.
You could say, I mean, it was eventual, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, I felt like that was the turning point.
Right.
It was like a significant shift.
For sure. Naveen, is there an identifiable antagonist in Almost Famous for you?
I mean, this movie is really a truly coming of age movie. So it's like life is that antagonist. Like you've got this 15-year-old who's going on this adventure to, you know, with trying to get interviews and write articles for rock bands. You know, Sabbath was his first one to try to get there. Couldn't get into it. Got into this lesser-known group, Stillwater, and just did what he could and got on it. So there's that want of, I guess, notoriety, if I'm using that word correctly, the getting that interview, trying to work that way. In that process, he's falling in love with this girl, and he's got that side of things going on, and trying to manage all of that, do all of those things, and even just trying to be friends as well, especially considering he didn't have that kind of growing up. He was 2 years younger than his classmates.
Again, supposedly a thing they really drill a lot harder in the extended cut is like the first 20 or so minutes is much more footage of just him kind of feeling awkward and out of place with his peers, not knowing he was actually going to.
They should have left that in. I think that would have helped.
Left that in.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I agree.
But you kind of got that sense with that little bathroom scene. Everybody's combing their, you know,
mustaches.
If you want to call it mustaches and things, and he's 2 feet shorter than they are, and so there's kind of that.
That's
sense
such a good scene.
Wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, that adolescence basically of how do you stay a strong, stable kid, or do you succumb to just being a follower? Do you just you know, give in kind of thing? So
how do you preserve your character in is a really major theme for a lot of these kind of coming of age stories. Like, you know, how do you kind of take all the evil and disappointment, frustration in the world, grow strong enough to sort of push back against it, but sort of not lose yourself in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you would have to say that, you know, Penny Lane and Russell were huge speed bumps in there. Probably a little bit. I know we had that question about his mother later on. So, I mean, that's
we'll get there.
A little bit. And then even just having a much older sister, you know, trying to throw, you know, like, don't listen to mom. Here, you know, throwing a wrench in that wheel when he's so young and formative in those years. Like, I should be listening to my parent, but now you're telling me not to, and you know, so it's all those things.
That's funny you say that as a parent, because my read of those scenes was you should absolutely be listening to your older sister. Your mom's a psychopath.
Oh yeah.
Well, we get to that question about the mom. I've got some things there. So
we both have words.
Yeah.
Okay. Going to Papa. What do you think? Is there an identifiable antagonist in Almost?
Do you want to know what my real answer is? My real answer is the true antagonist here is Cameron Crowe for launching Kate Hudson's career and the leading up to of a series of unbearable, shitty Kate Hudson romantic comedies with How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days,
right?
Or Fool's Gold, or Raising Helen. I could go on, but it's exhausting enough already.
Right.
So, fie on you, Cameron Crowe. I guess he had another lead set up, and then Kate Hudson was just like so set on this role because she loved the movie Singles. So she kept pushing him on it, and I figure, I don't know, Nepo baby or something, she was able to wiggle her way in. I mean, the fact that she got put on the poster, or like, you know, the VHS cover or whatever, it's it makes you think like it's all her movie.
Yeah.
It's all about her, and she's part of it, but yeah, I just wish it didn't kind of distract from everything else. Because I mean, I wanted to focus on the William part. I want to see his journey, and then they would cut to her often, and it kind of took away from it. And like Naveen said, she would string him along, and I'm like, I mean, maybe he wouldn't even be there if she wasn't, she wasn't the trigger that was able to get him in to meet the band. So I mean, she is essential, but when it just keeps coming back to her, and at the very end when they wrap it up where she goes to Morocco, it's like, oh, good for her. And she also like brought William and Russell together, and so I'm like, she was the hero of the movie. But I was like, I don't know, the fact that she's just like, she's a minx.
Right. The three of you are familiar with the term manic pixie dream girl, right?
Sure.
Actually, I am not.
You've heard that one, Pascal?
Every one of John's crushes.
David for Patreon. And out goes my video feed.
Yeah. Eric, I can't see.
So interestingly, the character kind of Kate Hudson plays is absolutely sort of like a manic pixie dream girl. I didn't know this until kind of watching this movie and researching and doing like a little reading afterwards, because it's sort of the manic pixie dream girl. It's kind of like an irritating trope of like, just Penny Lane in this film, or kind of Zooey Deschanel in 500 Days of Summer, or Natalie Portman in Garden State. It was kind of like a plague of the aughts of these kind of sort of bizarrely written kind of female characters. I didn't actually know this, but the origin of the term manic pixie dream girl came from a 2007 article Nathan Rabin wrote for the Onion AV Club about Cameron Crowe's follow-up movie to Almost Famous, Elizabethtown, where basically Kirsten Dunst plays kind of more or less, certainly the exact, but kind of like a more kind of extreme. She's sort of an air stewardess, kind of like chipper, kind of quirky version of kind of like the Kate Hudson character. And Nathan Rabin in this article coined the phrase for the first time, manic pixie dream girl, to kind of just put kind of ping an ID on this trope that he was kind of starting to see in like a lot of kind of contemporary movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah. All right. Is there an identifiable antagonist for me? I was thinking about this one for like a little bit. If we're kind of going with the idea of the antagonist being something that the characters in the movie kind of fight and struggle against the whole film, if we're kind of going with that as something sort of being like an obstacle. The thing that I wrote down for like the big antagonist of like the movie was irrelevance. The thing I kind of came to, like, looking at the majority of the characters, everybody is trying to fight being irrelevant in one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Everybody is trying to find for important. I mean, Almost Famous is kind of obviously kind of right there, like in the title of the movie. But for William, it's just he's trying to fight for relevance against the fact that he's kind of like a 15-year-old. He's completely out of place in this world. And Eleanor is kind of fighting for relevance in that she's lost her older daughter, and she's just trying to be a cool enough mom to keep her son in her life. Penny is fighting irrelevance because she's trying to kind of keep like the love and attention of Russell, who's kind of more like focused on his music and his ex-wife, current girlfriend that described her. Stillwater, very kind of I think like very very clearly portrayed as a really mid-tier band throughout like the course of this movie. They're trying to fight. They're trying to fight for kind of relevance, and they're trying to get to sort of like they're pursuing this impossible thing of getting to the top tier of kind of 70s rock band that they're obviously sort of never going to make. I mean, there's kind of like a throwaway line early in the movie where they're all kind of partying at this hotel, and everybody's going around. I think Jay Baruchel kind of says offhand, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, it's like Stillwater's down here, but Led Zeppelin, like they're up on the top floor.
Mm.
Yeah,
like a little bit. Lester Bangs is trying to kind of fight to kind of still stay kind of relevant, even though he's aging out of it, and he's aging out of kind of rock journalism, and he's kind of just old and like a little bit kind of desperate and sort of giving advice to 15-year-olds and kind of like just living by himself with Detroit Sucks T-shirt, his record collection, everything else. And the Band-Aids are kind of even trying to fight for relevance of just kind of being groupies, because there's that kind of great scene with Fairuza Balk towards the end of the film, where she's just kind of like she's staring down like the younger girls that are now following around like these bands, and her great line is complaining about them. And she goes, "Yeah, none of these girls are on birth control, and they eat all the steak." So that's kind of what I
That's a great one.
Yeah, thank you. All right, going to the next question. Cameron Crowe described Almost Famous as a love letter to rock and roll in his Oscar acceptance speech. Discuss. Andy, how about we start with you?
So the movie had a $3.5 million music budget, which it's high for now, but back then when the movie came out, it was astronomical. It was, I think I read something about how it was like 2 to 3 times the average music budget for a given movie. And I went through that laundry list of acts that that feature in the movie, and there were more that I didn't mention. Not to mention the fact that you've got this fictional band Stillwater that needs music, so they hire Peter Frampton and they hire Nancy Wilson, and they hire this whole basically murderers row of musicians to come.
Right, the guitar parts for Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So they've got this just incredible. They've got these incredible musicians coming in and writing this music for this fictional band that will never see the light of day. This music that will never see the light of day, really outside of this movie, and anybody that happens to want to
not
listen
just outside
to
this movie, but like songs you'll only hear maybe 10, 20 seconds of over the course of the film.
Right. And I will say, you hear 10 to 20 seconds of it, and it left me wanting to hear more of it. I will say, that style of 70s music really hits home for me. That sort of like blues rock, kind of slow burn, heavy drum, that kind of stuff, like the Deep Purple and Rainbow and bands like that. Like, I just love that stuff. But anyway, so I don't think that you spend that kind of money on a soundtrack, and I don't think you put that kind of effort into building a fake band and make a movie like this without just being in love with music as an art form.
Right.
And for me anyway, I think it's probably 85% of why I still love this movie is because I'm a huge music fan, always will be. It's definitely one of the most important things in my life. And I feel like this whole movie just sort of drips with that affection, that love of music and of musicians, and the whole, mystique that comes around bands and touring and groupies or Band-Aids and all the other stuff as well. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, beautifully put. Very nice. Going to Naveen, what do you think?
I mean, definitely. It gives you the life of the musician, the rock band. Excuse me. Delves into that whole dynamic and relationship of being able to either work together or the fighting that happens within the band. But then you've got the huge fanatic with groupies. Just that base that they want to tour with you and be with you and do everything with you and whatever they can with you. And then to the reporter who's got to write about you to make a living, but do they tell it how it is? Do they embellish things? Do they, or leave things out? So it's got so many different aspects of that rock and roll journey, and even down to Fallon's role, who was pretty short. It wasn't that big of a role, I didn't think.
Thank God.
Yeah, but
seriously,
that side,
it's interesting. Like, just quick interjection there, but I was listening to the Blank Check podcast about Almost Famous, and like a great point that they made was is that Fallon was actually, they argued, exceptionally well cast in this movie because the film and the writing kind of just tapped into like an inherent sliminess and an inherent social climate thing that Harry Poole kind of was, right?
Okay, you can justify that. I think it was like the longest he's ever not broke character. Everything he does on every skit on SNL, I cringe. Yeah. Except for that one where it was like Antonio Banderas and he was like, too sexy, too sexy. That one made it for me.
But even that, those are okay when Horatio Sands is doing is
he kind of
it's about that it's still about 1,000 times funnier.
He's like, take a seat, Jimmy.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, it has to be, and it definitely is a love letter to rock and roll because it's just giving you that whole feel and vibe, and just seeing that like this is the life of a rock and roll musicians of what they end up going through, and then do they sell out and take that plane when they're comfortable on the bus? Do they do this? It's like the music we love and listen to, and here's the life of that. It seems all glamorous from this side, but on the inside, it's not as chalked up as it is. But people still
these stories always have a theme about art versus commerce,
right? Yeah. But again, people want that, I'm sure he wanted something like that to be famous in some way, and
to have this part in what for many people must have been an incredibly exciting time.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think to answer this question, we've covered like everything we've talked about up to this point. I think kind of really speaks to, the fact that this is a love letter to to music of the time. And I mean, again, like Naveen said or Andy said, I mean, they kind of capture it perfectly. It just has all the elements that you would, you'd expect to see in this kind of movie. I think knowing a little more about kind of the director and just kind of his life and how his involvement was with music at the time. It might tell us a stronger story if he told a real story, but I think without having that kind of experience, do you really trust a director to make this kind of movie, to write this kind of movie, to direct this kind of movie, and give you that, honest picture? And so I think that really shines throughout the movie is the fact that Cameron Crowe was there. He saw this happen. And I do say I kind of wish I saw the real story, maybe what happened, but at the same time, it's kind of that thing you ponder when you're watching the movie. He's considered, like William's character is considered the enemy the whole time. But, I mean, that's the thing.
They literally scream
the enemy, yeah.
Do you give away the whole shebang and then just, take away the magic? Or do you kind of keep that veil and then only reveal parts of it? And I think the parts that you see, maybe in like the Rolling Stone, interview or article that got published at the end, I think that's what people were expecting to see. What is rock and roll? But yeah, I mean, this is a love letter because it has the soundtrack. It has all the various elements you would expect for, this type of movie. And I think even if you're not a fan of Elton John or Led Zeppelin, it's not music I grew up with listening to. It was something like my dad's generation grew up with. But I mean, a point of comparison would be I watched the movie The Doors with Val Kilmer when I was like 22. Oh, come on.
I hate The Doors. The
Doors is like the...
You love that era.
Right. Andy hates The Doors, but now he's going to defend the Guess Who.
Yeah, I know.
Classic Lester Bangs.
Go back to Tiny Dancer.
Hate The Doors.
I need some more Tiny Dancer.
American Woman.
Soundtrack. Yeah, I mean, when I saw that movie, though, I hated The Doors. I was like, I don't like The Doors. I don't understand this kind of music. Oh. And my dad be like, oh, they're kind of angsty and dark, but, they have a lot of great songs. And after I watched the movie, I was like, shit, I actually kind of want to listen to the Doors. Same thing for this. Growing up, my dad would say, listen to Led Zeppelin. He put it on the radio or something, and I'd be like, no, not for me. I don't get it. This is old person music. Yeah. But watching this movie, it kind of like eases you into it. So you just unconsciously start to like gravitate towards it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the magic of the movie is you learn to like something without even realizing it. And maybe a second or third viewing of the movie would really help that kind of shine through.
Sure. It's incidental, but just every single time I've heard your dad talk about the actual shows that he saw, like in the 70s. It's always something like, yeah, just I saw Santana and Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. My first concert was Jimi Hendrix. That's how he starts out. My first concert was Jimi Hendrix. And then he talks about, me and my brother. Yeah, he told me about this. Him and his brother, they went hitchhiking to go see Led Zeppelin perform.
Yeah.
And they were like still in high school.
Yeah.
I mean,
that I would watch a movie, 1,000%.
Yeah, I know.
You want to kickstart?
You could only write, But he'll talk your ear off.
Yeah, sir.
I would love to hear those stories.
Just meet him once. Go down to his guitar basement, his sneaky guitar basement.
Go down to his guitar basement
30 guitars.
Tomato garden.
That sounds great.
And just, go to the tomato
water
garden.
From snacks. Make sure you're well hydrated.
I didn't realize how delicious heirloom tomatoes were.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak on it real quick in this question because honestly, this is the only one I left this one till the absolute last minute. Like I said, 70s my favorite decade. I kind of bounced off like this movie like a little bit. What I thought I would do would be to peruse some letterbox reviews of just why people sort of love this movie so much and anything that I thought was kind of like interesting. I thought I would just kind of read the pod. I got distracted though because when you sort the Almost Famous letterbox reviews by popularity, the first 3 pages are largely just sort of kind of thirst comments about Billy Crudup. And so what I'm going to do for my answer is just kind of read 3 of my favorite ones. So I'll just kind of go through these real quickly. So on Billy Crudup's character Russell in Almost Famous, letterbox user Sophie says, embarrassed to admit that I think Billy Crudup in this film is possibly the hottest any man has looked in any movie ever. Dylan Troskin writes, warning, this film may cause bursts of aggression caused by overwhelming feelings of attraction towards Russell. I literally split my knuckle open. And my favorite one, Aja writes, Billy Crudup is so hot, I want him to, verbatim, I'm reading this word for word, next part, exactly as written. I want him to bend me over a 7-Eleven bathroom sink and do origami with my guts.
Ew.
There we are. Okay. Moving on.
Hey guys, I have to go. I have does not involve a bathroom.
I am a golden god.
I've got some hair to grow out.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
there. You gotta get one of those little mustache, like one of those little kind of mustache combs too, like at the start.
I got a tiny dancer to me.
I gotta learn how to play the guitar.
So Andy, all fantastic questions. This is a little sort of digression. I felt that I just kind of need to throw in. Call this question. Mother just goes a little mad sometimes. Elaine Miller, accused, overprotective, or actually mentally ill? Andy, let's start with you.
Oh man, I mean, she all of the above. I don't think you can. I don't think you can narrow it down.
Okay. I'm sorry. Can we pause? Roll back a bit. I asked this to like the 3 parents on the pod. If you could just answer this collectively, is Elaine a good parent?
I think Andy was going to answer that earlier. I'd love to hear that answer, Andy. What are your feelings now as a parent?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. I think so. she's a single mom in the 70s when, you know, drugs and sex, drugs, and rock and roll are just running rampant. They live in a suburban town, so, you know, seemingly, I guess
it's set up. It's like they live in San Diego.
Yeah, but they're kind of like in the burbs of.
Oh,
San
yeah,
Diego,
68 San Diego might have also been like in kind of
Sure.
Yeah, I don't actually know, but so it doesn't appear that there's a lot going on in their neck of the woods, and so that, you know, she's got this 18-year-old daughter who seems to be a pretty free spirit, and doesn't really listen to her. She's got this 15-year-old son, or what, a 13-year-old or 11 in the beginning of the movie year-old son, who she's just trying to do right by and like not let him get completely corrupted, and, you know, let him be the sensitive dude that he is and the writer that he is, and whatever. So I guess by that definition, she's doing the best she can. So that makes her, you know, I think at least she's trying to be a good parent. I think the converse to that is, yeah, she's clearly like mentally ill. She lies to her son about his age. Who does that? Like, that's such a sociopathic, psychopathic thing to do.
Yeah.
The conversation could kind of start and end there, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it could. So I don't know. Like I said, I think all of the above. I think she's trying as hard as she can, and she's also fighting against whatever demons that she's got worming through her brain while she's doing it.
Sure. And Naveen, what do you think?
Yes.
Well, that answer is it.
I'm done. Yeah. No, I mean, definitely all the above. I mean, there's a big, huge age difference, it seems like, between the daughter and the son. So obviously, she's a little bit harder on the daughter, being the first kid. You know, probably stricter rules, and then the other side being a daughter. You know, at that time of era, or even when she grew up, you know, daughters were just like housewife, dude. You know, and.
This has to be like the ultimate movie about how the younger sibling usually has it easier, I think.
Yeah. I mean, again, by the time you turn 15, it's like, yeah, sure, go to this concert, and I'm not going with you. I'm dropping you off and letting you, you know? So, yeah, she obviously let the reins go a little bit, and, you know, I had give him his freedom. I mean, definitely that age thing was totally messed up. But at the same time,
insane.
Yeah, but at the same time, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But 70s being a time of women's movement too, and considering she was a professor, you know, that was probably not a big thing. You know, either
teaching what looked like teaching Jungian psychology and
right,
some pretty heavy topics.
So I mean, definitely more overprotective with the daughter, but less protective as it got to the son. But I understand that when she would call to check in, she would scare all those people. And, you know.
I know what happens in your Valhalla of decadence is a truly incredible line.
Yeah. That's a great line.
And then every person that got off the phone is like, she scares me. So, she was... Maybe that's considered overprotective, or maybe that's just being a parent. It's like, hey, I'm coming for you if anything happens to my kid. It's, you know, that's just to me that being a parent, that'd be a normal thing. It's like, yeah, you know, don't mess, or you know, you deal with me. The whole Taken Liam Neeson thing coming out.
Sure, but this is after you literally let your kid kind of go on tour with like a 1973 rock band,
right? So
it's really mixed. It's very mixed messages for them,
right?
And it's super mixed. I think one of the really sort of great character bits for Elaine is when she's on the phone, and at one point she just goes, "Was I a cool mom?" that kind of mama lion sort of thing kind of drops like that.
So and definitely confusion. It's like, as you just mentioned with the cool, you know, it's like, yeah, you want your kids to think you're cool, but you got to give them structure. You got to lay down the law when they do something wrong. So you got to mix all those up together to be a parent, and try to find the right percentages to do it well. And no, as they always say, there's no handbook for parenting, so it's all of the above. You never know what kind of kid you're going to get.
Interesting. Papa, going to you.
Every single day, from day to day, things change with your kids. You never know what you're going to get. It's very inconsistent, and it's hard to keep up with it. It's not something that you prepare your whole life for, being a parent. And your kids are not yourself. They're different and unique. And they don't react the way that you always expect them to. And you have to accommodate that and do it in a way where you're not kind of pushing them away or being too overbearing. Or it's tough because every time I say something to my kids or I do something, I feel like, how's this going to fuck them up for the rest of their lives? Like 20 years from now, this one fight we had, they're going to come back to this. They're going to harp on this. It's going to come back and they're going to be like, remember that time when we had that big fight? Like, you were such an asshole. And I'm going to be like, I was just doing what I thought was the right thing at the time. And maybe it wasn't. But again, day to day, you constantly have these struggles where it's like you can't overthink stuff. I think for Elaine especially, the fact that she scared her daughter away, that's a constant struggle in her brain. She's like, every step I took to raise this woman who I thought was a fine young woman, pushed me away. And she left, and she's gone. And they don't even keep in contact, which is the worst part. So she has that struggle where she's with her, she has her son. How do I keep him and not scare him away to the point where he just never talks to me again? I mean, particularly in the film, it's when Anita takes off, it's not this kind of sort of just casual sort of like throwing like a temper tantrum and then kind of coming like fluttering back sort of thing. Like you cut to literally 4 years later after Anita leaves to become like an airline stewardess, and she's truly gone out of the family and out of the house. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so that's why for me, I don't think you can really put Elaine in any category because I think all of us as parents probably experience these things all the time. And if you ask our kids at any point how they felt something went, they might say, my dad's a fucking lunatic. Or maybe, my dad was cool because he let me go, hang out with my friends in Boston or something. Or it just changes constantly. And I don't blame her for it. She's just struggling with her situation. And I don't know if there's any right or wrong way to handle that. Mm-hmm. Very well. Yeah, I think that's I'm just very glad well Johnny's not my son. I'm even more. Come back to us, Johnny. Come back. What did I do to scare you away, Johnny? Why are you still out in the desert? Yeah, I know. Yeah. What's out there, Johnny? Having enough of those conversations. Yeah, you're just like every single time. I'm just going to go on to my. Yeah, Eric, it's not you. It's my mother. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Right. I get it. Living in Boston, your seasonal depression wasn't as bad as you remember it being. It'll be fine. Just mid-December through like late March, it just things go a little bit gray. You know what would scare me away? Too many Wahlburgers. Everywhere. I mean, Jesus. Funny you bring that up. It's like I got some crazy to tell you later. Yeah, really? Oh, nice. Yeah. I'd love to hear it. All right, so I just all wonderfully put points by like the three sort of actual fathers on the podcast. The thing that sort of I kind of bumped up against was with like Elaine's character, just all kind of like crazy parenting aside, is like the way that they kind of just like establish her like in the first few minutes. I thought, obviously she's a complicated, recognizable sort of paternal type. I don't know why this sort of one sort of particular like detail sort of like kind of especially stuck with me, but I kind of felt her introduction and her kind of time in the first few minutes of the movie, I felt it was really, really over the top and maybe a little hard to buy, even kind of considering like the circumstances and the time frame. I'm talking specifically about when Anita tries to sneak like a record home, and Elaine kind of comes up,
and she catches her, and she pulls the record out, and this whole kind of to do that sort of just it's Anita snaps and sort of just kind of takes it and sort of leaves the family because of it.
Johnny, don't even try to begin to understand mother-daughter relationships.
Well, this is why I wrote to like an actual parent to kind of get some kind of context here.
Ooh.
So my father was actually living in California sort of multiple times in like the late 60s and early 70s. I sent him this clip and I asked him, could you and Mom kind of take a look at this and tell me, is this at all plausible that like a middle-aged parent in San Diego in like the late 60s who's a college professor would actually believe, is this something recognizable to people your age, or is this like a little bit over the top? And my father, Mom and Dad watched it. Dad wrote back to me, and like this was his kind of general thought like on the topic. Dad said, my gut feeling is that Frances McDormand's character, as she played it, is implausible. The giveaway is the album that she takes exception to, Bookends by Simon and Garfunkel. They were not threatening musicians, and that is definitely not a threatening album, although a very good one. That is how someone from the time would have actually looked at it. To me, the mother's reaction did not actually ring. Did not ring true.
But they were on pot, remember? You can see it in their eyes. They were on pot.
I put it to Dad. I'm like, what would have actually freaked a mother out in 1969? And Dad said a Black Sabbath album probably wouldn't have gone over great. Like an MC5 album would have gone over great. You know, like an interesting point they brought up. One of the real, like, legit kind of dangerous bands that were kind of considered dangerous at the time was actually the Rolling Stones. So even like the Rolling Stones thing, we're trying to sneak Let It Bleed or Sticky Fingers in the House might not have gone over great. He's like, Simon and Garfunkel. Mom sort of more or less kind of like mirrored this when I asked her about it. She's like, Simon and Garfunkel, and particularly Bookends, everybody loved them. Nobody would have had like a sort of that.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Going to number 9. We'll try to kind of go quick on this. Viggo Mortensen's Toes. Biggest surprise or most interesting trivia? Andy?
So, yeah, I'll be really quick with this one because we've kind of, the thing that I pulled out was just the names of the musicians behind Stillwater. I had always assumed, and I don't know why I assumed this, that the actors were actually playing the music, because I knew that Billy Crudup had learned how to play guitar for the movie, and I didn't recognize the other actors, so I just assumed that maybe they knew how to play bass and drums.
They might have actually had like a real drummer and bassist and whatever else.
Sure, yeah. So I didn't really know. So finding out that Mike McCready was the guitar player, there were a couple of guys from Heart that played bass and drums. This is the behind the scenes. These are the ones that the actors are lip syncing to and whatever guitar syncing to or air guitaring to or whatever. But like I said, they brought in some real heavy hitters. Frampton did a lot of the writing. Nancy Wilson did a lot of the writing. These are bona fide musicians. These are legit guys from back in that time who lived it. And I just thought that was really cool. I had no idea. And then the other thing I found that I thought was semi-interesting was the fact that initially Brad Pitt was attached to play the Russell Hammond part that Billy Crudup ended up taking. Yeah. And I wonder, I guess I just wonder what that would have been like with Brad Pitt instead of Billy Crudup. Would it have been better? Would it have been worse? I can't see anybody playing it better than Billy Crudup did.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Plus, like the fact somebody at that level of fame, Brad Pitt in 2000, this is what, like a year after Fight Club. Mm-hmm. A lot of the movie and the storytelling had to have been kind of contorted around him versus somebody a bit lesser known like Crudup. They could kind of just sort of play and portray the character as is.
Yep. Agreed. So that's what I found. What about you?
Naveen, what do you got?
There are a few things that were pretty interesting. One of Cameron Crowe sending it around, the script around, and then Steven Spielberg saying, "Yeah, do it." Getting that okay from him. That was a good idea. I I thought it was pretty neat that there actually is a real band called Stillwater, even though
Really?
this Stillwater has nothing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
nothing to do with that.
it's there. Yeah, it just happened to have the same name.
Right.
So that was pretty neat. And then
They ended up having to pay. Cameron Crowe ended up having to pay a little kind of a royalty or whatever to the real Stillwater band after the fact. After finding out that band existed, it was like, oh shit. Well, here's a little thank you for letting us use the name.
Right.
Okay.
Nice.
That's nice. Yeah, I didn't read that part.
All that money they actually saved, not actually having kind of Stairway on the soundtrack.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Papa, what do you think?
I mean, you guys covered a bunch. One thing I didn't want to bring up, but I thought was interesting, is Kate Hudson released a CD this past year, and I guess she ever since she was in Almost Famous, she always kind of like really clicked with the music. She would still keep in touch with like a lot of the actors that were in the film. And she was pretty close friends with Billy Crudup, I guess. And so she actually reached out to him because she knew she loved singing. He still played guitar. And so she actually got him to agree to play live performances with her for her music. And so he'll go on stage with her. Yeah, I don't know if they're touring right now or when it's going to happen. But I guess she said that he was actually going to join her in
Was Billy Crudup's like only stipulation that he got to play the whole concert nude as Dr. Manhattan? Was that
yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it is 2000. I'm in Almost Famous. It is 2024. I'm still in Almost Famous. That joke's mostly for Eric, but I'm glad I got a smile from the other two. Okay, the only trivia I'll sort of kind of shout out, the Fallon explicitly telling Russell to lie Rolling Stone, I thought was a really interesting one. But the fascinating one for me, I don't know, like if any of you guys sort of like kind of read like the link that I sent out, but the 1973 article that Cameron Crowe wrote at 16, following around the Allman Brothers Band for 3 weeks, pretty much like right after both Dwayne Allman and Barry Oakley died in like separate motorcycle accidents.
Yep.
It's an incredible timepiece for what kind of rock was like then. It is an astounding piece of writing. It is an especially astounding piece of writing for a fucking 16.
Yeah.
It's just melted my brain.
That's what I was curious. How strong was Cameron Crowe's writing?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So high recommend for that. So that's pretty much it. Let's kind of cut to closing thoughts, starting with Andrew.
I mean, I definitely, like I said in the beginning, I definitely see the movie through different eyes than I did. Certainly when I first saw it, when it came out in 2000, but also, in subsequent watches after the fact. I have a soft spot, I guess, for I love a good romantic comedy. I love a good sappy, movie, sappy story. So I think that's why one of the reasons why this movie kind of resonated as much as it did with me. If you're going into it looking for a pseudo 1970s rock and roll documentary, hoping to see the debauchery and everything that goes on, this would be a wholly unsatisfying experience for you. I also see now how flawed, a lot of the movie really, really was and is, that I definitely didn't see when I was younger. It's far from a perfect movie. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it again. Do I love it as much? Did I love it as much as the previous times I'd watched it? Probably not. Maybe this is one of those, don't go back and meet your heroes kind of things, because I don't know that I would rush out to see this movie again anytime soon or in the future. So I think maybe the movie's run its course for me because I've kind of seen it, done it. I kind of get what they're getting at, and I don't get everything out of it that maybe I once did or that I would like to get out of it. But that being said, I think still a good movie, still really, enjoyable. I think the cast was great, most of it anyway. I didn't realize, I guess I'm rambling, but I didn't realize how little I actually liked Kate Hudson until Eric started talking about all of the crappy rom-coms that she's...
You just confessed you love romantic comedies, so I mean...
But those ones...
Where are we going with this?
I've seen all of those. And
I unfortunately have to.
They're all pretty terrible. Like,
yeah,
they're pretty bad. Give me Serendipity any day of the week. That's a banger of a rom-com. That's the one.
This is going to be our next cycle, isn't it? Just 4 straight rom-com. No.
Don't.
I won't put you through that, Johnny. I won't put you through that.
Right.
Watch Serendipity on your own, though.
I could just Google photos of Kate Beckinsale, and I think that will kind of get me for a good hour and a half.
Probably, but I gotta say, it's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a good movie. Anyway, I don't have any coherent closing thoughts, but it was fun. It was a fun movie. I'm glad we watched it.
Very cool.
I was going to say, John, to your point about Kate Beckinsale, just going and watching the clips, I could have done the same thing here with Kate Hudson. I would have watched maybe a second and a half of some boob, and that would have been it.
I told you. I told you not to get excited. Let's
Yeah, it's, a little flashy. Hey, whatever. Okay. They had to put something like that in there. Without it.
Roger Ebert in his review, and this is something I always loved when he wrote about, was he thought that the American movie ratings system was evil and insane and decadent and just made completely nonsensical decisions. He called out sort of this movie sort of specifically. He's like, this is a terrific film for teenagers. Like, the fact that this is R-rated is just tragic.
Yeah.
Going to Eugene, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I probably will like to watch it again, just to kind of get another pass through, see if I missed anything. But yeah, it's another coming of age movie that was cool. I guess I didn't get that far, but kind of like the escape, I guess, and be like, all right, I would always want to be a gigging musician that I never got to do, and it's just kind of fun to watch that. But I guess even being the William character and being on that sideline would have been pretty awesome to be able to have experienced. So it was just that kind of fun movie, and it did provide that escape, just be, that's probably what life would have looked like on the road.
Sure. Closing thoughts, going to Eric?
I mean, for me, again, I said it was a mixed bag, but there are, there's some moments that they don't work well with me. Other moments which I'm just like, it's such an amazing thing to experience. Like, again, the Tiny Dancer where they're all just start singing. It like that, when I saw that, it reminded me of the first time I heard somebody play it. I was at work and somebody just had it on the background. I was like, who is this? What artist is this? What song is this? And I mean, I'm like 26, 27.
Really?
And they're like, okay. Yeah. And I was like, no, that can't be right. Like, I would have heard of this song by now. But, yeah, moments like that. Or, like, I do love the confession scene in the airplane where they all break. My favorite part is when the guy goes, I'm gay.
The
and
drummer.
I'm thinking, I was like, who the fuck are you? Are you in the band?
Okay, so like a great little detail. He does not say anything the entire film right up until that point.
That's the only line he has.
A silent band.
What was it? Jimmy Fallon's confession was he hit somebody with his car and he thinks about it.
Yeah. He's like, I didn't do anything. I just drove off into the night.
Just drove off.
It was maybe like the best use of Fallon in anything ever. Like,
it's true. It's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe.
And towards the end of the movie, I didn't expect something like that, so I was just like, awesome. Like that really kind of kept me engaged. Stuff like that. The music, I can't, say it enough. It's just, I'm sure if I was, much younger and I had seen this movie, I would have loved this movie. Every bit of it. Same thing like Empire Records. You just forgive so many things, and it's like it just has to be the right moment, the right time. And when you're young and you think like, I can't like you hear about these stories and you're like, I could never be that person. I could never do that thing. I could never be the Cameron Crowe being 15 or 16 and, touring with a band. And, when you're young, you do stupid stuff. And then sometimes you realize, maybe I should think that I can do that. And maybe whatever I want to do, maybe this can inspire me to do it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot you could get out of this movie. Something I thought was interesting is I read an article about Kate Hudson talking about showing her son, who's 12, this movie for the first time. His reaction, she's like, I thought he was just going to say it's dated, it's mom was a trashy actor. And
at one point, was he like, I remember those.
I know.
If you can cut that out of the podcast, that doesn't.
I don't like that.
Write down the timestamp. Don't leave it in.
But she's like, as he watched the movie, she's like, I didn't know how he was going to react, and he was just like, you can do that? Like, kids can do that? Like, when you're, 15? And she's like, I guess if that's what you want to do. And he's just like, oh, wow, that's sweet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, if I had saw it when I was younger, I'd probably love it. Seeing it now, thought it was all right. I want to know what John has to say about this movie.
All right, so I'm just going to wrap it up for. We didn't talk about him like a ton over the course of this, but absolute MVP of the film for me was Lester Bangs.
Thank you.
As portrayed by Philip Seymour Hoffman. I loved Lester Bangs. I want to be Lester Bangs. I'm very much afraid I'm gradually turning into Lester Bangs.
He created Cream magazine.
I'm living by myself.
For everybody.
I'm going to way too many rock shows. I'm going to get like a Hawaiian shirt and like a Detroit Sucks t-shirt. He was my idol, my hero. Let me say this about kind of his one scene during the end. He's just, it's after William has been told that Rolling Stone's not going to run his piece. He's on the phone. It's his lowest point. He's calling up Lester Bangs. He's destroyed.
Mind if I interrupt you there?
Beg pardon?
I'm going to interrupt you there for a sec. We're about to lose time, so you're going to get cut off.
All right. So let's jump for like 5 minutes to like meeting number 3. We'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. So your final thoughts, Johnny?
Yeah. Final thoughts. Lester Bang, hero, awesome, MVP at the movie. Supposedly at the Rose Bowl showing in Pasadena of Almost Famous, he got like applause every single place scene.
Of course he did. Well deserved.
Yep.
The point, maybe my favorite point of the movie, but also the point I think the movie kind of lost. The point that the movie lost me the most was the phone call towards the end between William and Lester, and Lester gives. He's just, William is so down about the article. He's so down about having to move back to his mother's place. He's so down about everything that happened with Penny and Russell and everything else. And Lester's consoling him. And I wrote down this line because it was so beautifully delivered and like affected me. Lester says, "Because we are uncool, women will always be a problem for us. Most of the great art of the world is about that very problem." Right? And that I just kind of found very effective. Then I'm thinking about who he's actually saying it to, this kid complaining about that he's so uncool and he's so unaccomplished, and lost Andy. Hopefully he'll kind of circle back.
He was
but
moved.
I'm sitting there. Philip Seymour Hoffman delivers that amazing line, and I'm just so affected by it. And I'm like, wait a minute, William, we just watched him have a 4-way with Anna Paquin, Bijo Phillips, and like Fairuza Balk. Like this is not an uncool kid. This is not a kid who should be having a crisis about how cool he is. He did all this shit at 15, and then I just did that. I found a Letterboxd review kind of after my first pass of the movie, and I think this is by Letterboxd user Matt Lynch, and this for me kind of sums up kind of where the film kind of lost me at the end. But he said, for all the talk about how desperately uncool this kid is, this movie still seems like kind of like the ultimate humble brag.
It's true.
We get Andy back? Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
So, yeah. So, man, I really, really enjoyed certain parts of this. It got me thinking more about 70s music. It got me kind of curious about sort of revisiting stuff to kind of like the thing that Eric brought up earlier. Tangerine's a fantastic Zeppelin song. I haven't probably seriously listened to in like 2 decades. But the things I sort of bounced against it, I think are kind of like very personal at the end of the day. Obviously, this is really like an enduring film that still means a lot to like a lot of people. So I think that's very cool. All right, and that's all I have for kind of like closing thoughts for our next pod. We have a pick by Eric. And this is a true unknown. This is a Hulu exclusive film called Good Boys. And you want to tell us just a little bit about it before we wrap up?
Sure. Again, when I saw this movie, I did not know what I was watching. I was pretty drunk, and I thought I was watching a different movie. When I was sober, I watched it with my son, and it confirmed it was what I thought it was. So again, this was a movie by it's like a first-time director. It was produced by Seth Rogen, and it was supposed to be the middle school version of Superbad, which is one of my favorite movies. And that's the movie I wanted to do, was Superbad. But then
a movie I believe the two of us went to opening night. Kind of back
yes. And I mean, yeah, I love Superbad to death. I've seen it too many times. I know you've all probably seen it, so I was like, I'm going to give the guys something different that they haven't seen. The way this was described to me by somebody else is this is kind of like watching South Park with like on film without it being. Yeah, it doesn't have the 4 boys, but it gives you all those elements and the type of humor. It's all there. Mm-hmm. And also, it's the stuff that, if you have a kid that's in middle school, this is what they're watching. This is probably going to be that movie that they talk about when they get older. So,
amazing.
Oh, nice. Cool. I've seen this.
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah, I was looking
Just
up.
pretend you haven't seen it.
What's that?
Mm-hmm.
Just pretend you haven't seen it.
No, I will watch it again because it was fantastic.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
No, yeah.
Right.
That was... It's like, he was sounding familiar. We lost him again?
Oh, no, we went to go watch the movie.
Oh, yeah.
He's just that excited. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, a super bad personal fave for me. In our conversations about, just things that actually sort of got what being like a teenager felt like, particularly 90s teenager. I've never seen a teenage film kind of done more accurately than Superbad. It just literally sitting right next to Eric, like watching that first time, just feeling like that. So
yeah,
that sounds fun. I'm looking forward to this, and
awesome.
Gentlemen, hopefully we'll be able to discuss this film soon. So,
all right,
I think that should do it. Show.
Sounds good.
Thank you kindly for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Guys.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
All right.
See you.
Johnny, by the way.
Yeah.
How's your mother?
It's all happening.